Hey folks, today's topic is a serious one and it's very serious. I'm going through it right now with a loved one, and I'm sure many of you out there probably have been through it firsthand, possibly, or you know somebody. And I'm talking about Alzheimer and other forms of dementia. So today's guest is Kara Hosler and James Sylvan Russell. We're going to talk about how you deal with it yourself. We're going to talk about what they call the 4 pillars. And also, what are the things not to do? So please share this podcast and, comment. If you're going through anything like this, they've also provided a phone number for help, for assistance that you may need. And that would be for yourself if you're the caregiver, or even for the person who is going through this disease. And yes, it is a disease, and it is a debilitating disease. So I also want to remind you, please be a responsible pet parent and have your pets spayed or neutered. All right, let's get right to it. One thing I want to bring up is, even though we were joking last time about, 81st birthday, 85 years old, things like that, dementia can come almost at any time in life, because your daughter was not 80 years old. Was she in her 50s?
She was 51 when she was diagnosed, but she had had the symptoms for 3 years beforehand.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that, at least from my understanding, and for me, my personal understanding as far as Alzheimer goes, is I thought that was a later stage of life type of thing that, you don't get it when you're 30, 40, 50 years old. You're young. How can you lose your mind? But it's not. It's more than that. So, Jim, I hope you don't mind that we really have this conversation. And I think you even brought it up last time, that it's an important conversation to have. So,
because Alzheimer's is one of the most difficult things to care for, because the patient loses mental ability on a steady basis. Patient loses functional ability on a steady basis. The moods get out of control because of the brain system. It's not her fault, his fault, or whatever it is. It's all of a sudden there's a lot of emotions that swing wildly. So it's very difficult to put a caregiver over a long period of time.
And about the time they think they've got it handled, they know how to handle this stage, then something changes and they have to figure out a different way of handling.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's a matter of always failing. And then, okay, we're starting a new process. We got to repair that. We got to go someplace else. And so you just say that's the disease. Just live with it.
I'm reading on a group on Facebook, just trying to stay in touch with how this feels to be a caregiver. And this Facebook group, every post is of despair. I don't know how to handle this. She wandered off. She destroyed something or other. Every single post is a post of despair.
I personally know, firsthand conversation that I don't know if that's the right thing to say. And my mom is going through that. And, I kind of mentioned to the two of you that there are different dynamics between siblings and my mother, as far as how we all deal with it and how mom is coping. And, she jokingly will say, "Oh, I'm stupid." And I was like, don't say you're stupid. 'Cause you're not. But I don't know if it's because there's a lack of her understanding what it is, or I don't know. And that's why I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I think it's not only the person that has the dementia going through that, it's the caregiver, the people around them have a difficult time too.
That's when Carol finally qualified it, dignified what we talk about. We talk about a love team, and the people in a love team have as much compassion and concern for the person with dementia as the caregiver. They need the same amount of care. And that's what we found and discovered. We didn't do it on purpose. We found that was what was happening with us.
The burnout rate of Alzheimer's caregivers is much higher than any caregiving situation.
I can almost understand and I say almost because I haven't gotten to that point yet. But yeah, when you hear the person with Alzheimer saying the same thing over and over, and you having to say you said it, the frustration just builds. It's small in the beginning, but then it builds up.
But what we advocate for is intentionally forming a love team, which means gathering together people who care, who love, may be at a distance, may be local, but gathering them and understanding, giving them the understanding that they are a team. Jim did this with largely social media, with his daughter's friends and coworkers. And so they kept in touch with each other throughout this whole time period, making sure that they informed each other of maybe what kind of changes Lynn was going through, informed each other of events coming up, birthday coming up. They planned parties together, and he had a whole year of this during COVID. So then they had, Zoom parties and so on. So what they discovered in kind of an organic way was that they had created a team. So what we've come to promote is a team with that's supported by 4 pillars. Those pillars are your turn.
Oh, my turn.
Yeah.
First one, the 4 pillars are care, prepare, share, and repair. And the care part has to do with people who really care about the loved one and or the caregiver. And so what they can do is recognize I care enough about either or both of them that I want to help. And 1 in 6 people in the United States know somebody who was a close neighbor, a friend, or a relative with dementia. We're not talking about isolated case. We're talking about millions of people. And they say, yeah, I know. And they don't think there's anything they can do. And the people who are caregivers can get into a tendency to think, I have to do this all myself. And we've met with people who have said, I just didn't have the courage to ask for help. Or when they did ask for help, it didn't go over very well. And
They didn't know how to teach people how they could help.
I want to throw something in right off the bat so people don't misunderstand or mistake what we're saying about the love team and the 4 pillars. It's not for the person with dementia. This is actually the care team for the caregivers, right?
It's both.
Both.
It's both.
Okay.
Absolutely both.
Okay.
Equally committed to both of them. Equally committed to both of them. And so, if you know somebody who's got Alzheimer's 80 miles away, well, there's nothing you can do. Well, there is some stuff that you could do. We found people who were willing to share about stories from Lynn because we posted what we were doing. And then somebody would find out about it. And they were a friend that they knew Lynn in high school. And so she wrote me back and said, I knew Lynn in high school. She always thought I was a jerk. And she always had to help me build my, do my stuff for the yearbook correctly. So she really taught me a lot. So I took that into Lynn. I posted it. And then I took it into Lynn and I shared it with her. I said, Lynn, she says you really had to carry her because she didn't know what she was doing. And Lynn said, oh, she was not. She was very high qualified. She knows the long-term memory. And that's what people have to understand. The long-term memory is there. And it's there for a long, long time. We'll tell you stories about that. So if you can share stories with the caregivers or stories with her, those are stories that they may be able to remember. So what happened was, for example, one of Lynn's very good friends that lived in Amsterdam started sending really interesting stories about what she did with Lynn and the stuff they did together. One of them was rescuing a really sick dog. She couldn't believe that Lynn would pick that dog up, as mangy it was, and put it in the car. So I took that story and I sat down with Lynn and with her 3 sons, and I read the story to Lynn. And she says, yeah, that dog was in really bad shape. Now, this was when she was 5 and 6 years into dementia. She knew those stories.
And in the process, her sons
Ask you
to
something really quick.
Yeah.
I remember about that, because is there a fine line as far as bringing back those memories? And the reason I ask this is because, as an example, my mom now gets the timeline mixed up, and we'll bring that up. Well, now that timeline tomorrow, that timeline just happened, and then she'll ask about it, and then it adds to the frustration of others trying to convince and say, no, that was a long time ago. I remember it. No, it was 40 years ago.
And
No.
it doesn't matter how long ago it was. It's valued as a good memory.
The first thing that we're taught when we're going in to see somebody that's got dementia is focus on her presence, and find out where she is. What's she thinking about? Is she nervous? Is she anxious or something? And then join her. The third step, join her. Be in agreement with what she's saying. What difference does it make if it was yesterday or 2 weeks ago? All she does is she remembers it. Her time dimension is gone, but her image of the situation is still there in long-term memory.
And pleasure of telling that story, sharing that story, remains. Even after you've left, you're no longer visiting her. The emotion and the pleasure of that remains, even if she may not remember what that story was 5 minutes later.
See, I went in to talk to her after her very good friend had been with her. And she had given her, as she always did, she came in with cream on her arms,
Lotion.
and then lotion. And she would spend half hour to an hour doing that with her legs and things like that. I came in, I saw her on the way out. I'm on the way in. I said, "Did you have a good visit with Nancy?" And she didn't remember the visit with Nancy. But I could talk to her about Nancy on a lot of other things that they did, because they were best friends forever. It's get in her head, be with her as where she is. And if that's where she says, and I went in to see my mother. She had Alzheimer's also. She was really frustrated. My brother Bob never calls me. And I said, well, Mom, he died 3 years ago. And she grieved. She grieved 3 years ago. So the next time she says, my brother didn't call me, I go in with her. She can't see her brother. She wants to see her brother. Oh, Mom, you know how much your brother loves you and how busy he is. Yeah. So he'll call you, so don't worry about it. And then we go to something else that's important. And she does say, yeah, he'll call me.
I am very glad that you're saying this so people are aware of that, meaning that go where they're at. Don't fight it.
Go where they're at.
And don't argue with them about the truth of something, or if that's where they are, if that's their truth, then go with that.
And don't say, do you remember?
Never say, do you remember? Because that's just going to be embarrassing.
And another key element, Chuck, is to remember that they process slowly. So they can't think as fast as we can, or she used to. So there has to be a real gap between saying something and then waiting for her a little bit to see how she responds.
Carol, you said you used that word and you mentioned burnout. So, and I know many caregivers struggle with either guilt due to like maybe burnout, feeling like they have to do everything themselves. So how do they know when it's time to ask for help? Like I said, you want to have that 4 pillars, you want to have that love team. When is it that they should know themselves that it's time to ask for that help?
Listen to your body. listen to your emotions. When I was under a great deal of stress caring for my husband, it wasn't Alzheimer's, but I could feel like we have to call the ambulance again, blah, blah, blah. I could feel the anxiety moving up in my body, not literally, sort of figuratively. Get in touch with those feelings. And emotionally, if you're getting close to tears, you need help. And there'll be a lot of tears, but that's the time to call a friend.
How hard is it to call a friend?
It shouldn't be difficult at all, right?
It shouldn't
Yeah.
be. Here again, we get back to who are the associates, the friends, the neighbors who really do care
Mhm.
and even have said, let me know how to help. And then the caregiver, I don't know, they wouldn't want to. It's really important for caregivers to just develop a list for themselves about what their colleagues can do. You could read a book to him. You could play a simple game that perhaps she can still play. You can just watch TV with, or you can sit in silence with. Silence is perfectly okay. You don't have to be in charge of maintaining a conversation. Sitting there holding a person's hand, that's being in touch, and that's okay.
And it's also not, in my opinion, in a love team, it's not the responsibility of the caregiver to ask for help. Every member on the team has that person as high a priority. What do you need? What can you help? What can I do for you? Can I take her out? I was the primary caregiver. I didn't spend nearly as much time as other people did because I was posting stuff on the lines. I was 2 blocks away, showed up every morning with her exactly the right Starbucks coffee latte with, and then I had headphones. I put the headphones on her so she had music all day long. And I would see her for about a half an hour and I'd go back and then all the staff knew about it. And so it was a matter of being willing to say, come, what do we need? They'd call me and say, what do you need? They would give me meatloaf that they cooked, put it in my freezer. That didn't help me care for Lynn, but there it was. I'd open up the door and there was a aluminum foil wrapped around a meatloaf that somebody was kind enough to give me. I didn't ask for.
I, you know, I'm going to say this. I'm not a counselor, psychiatrist, doctor, or anything like that. But from my experience and from what I've heard and learned from others with dementia or Alzheimer, the caregiver person, and even the patient, it's hard to detect and hard to know. So you just don't know. Like you said, your daughter was diagnosed, 3 or 4 years prior, but it didn't show really, or some people might say, "Oh, I forget things." Well, is that Alzheimer or is it something else? But when you're diagnosed or you're professionally diagnosed, um, are there things that we both as the future caregiver and the person diagnosed needs to know within those first few weeks of diagnosis what to do, what not to do? And I'm asking this maybe as an example. Do I write down my story of my life? Do I record a story of my life? Do I tell my loved ones, this is going to happen to me and it's happening? So in a couple of years, I may seem wacky. So don't say that I can't remember things. What can you tell people that are listening?
Was directing a museum. A couple came in once, and the husband said right out, we're here visiting museum. My wife has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. We're trying to make memories together now. And he was taking all kinds of pictures. So that's what he did, and I'm sure that he was able to bring out those pictures later. I want to insert something without meaning to change the topic, but I want to make sure that I get this in. That in Lynn's situation, she was in a facility. We're talking about a period of time when there were 2 facilities, but there was staff and so forth. The Facebook complaints that I read, these are people that the patient, if you will, we like to say loved one rather than patient. The loved one is still in the home and is so much harder. And the cost of the opportunity is so costly to have the help of a facility in caring for a person. We just want to acknowledge that that's where we are.
But you can find that support and help, and you can also get care that comes in. But the thing that you ask is to make sure she tells out her memories and things like that. Who she was and who she was observed is out there from all the people who knew her.
Mm-hmm.
So the people you want to talk to at her stage, now that she's diagnosed, are not necessarily her, but every person she ever knew. Her
Memories.
her memory, her neighbor. How do you like her? I really enjoyed her. No. Give me some stories about that she will remember. So then we ask, everybody in the family, and let's face it, all the people in a family don't necessarily love the loved one. There's a different reaction to them, but they have some stories that they could tell. And so we would take those stories, we'd ask them to share us, write them down, give them to us. And so that's when we started realizing we could get a history. We got our friends from Microsoft, and then when they started sharing stories, that we could share those stories out, and then she could comment on those stories because her long-term memory remembered those stories. And so the people who would come in to see her then would send me a note and said, Jim, it's wintertime. She doesn't have a winter coat. We want to take her outside for a walk. Get her a winter jacket. Dad doesn't think of that. So, but that's the point. It's all of the other people who can come in and help, and they don't have to be there. They could be someplace else and do that. We had people from grade schools and high schools and classmates and neighbors, and the more we put it out and posted it and shared all those stories, share them, the more people wanted to come in and help. And they said, well, I can do that.
And it would trigger their memories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we ran into somebody who said, you know what? I'm in charge of the program for 40th reunion at high school. I'm going to tell everybody. We started getting all sorts of things. Said, Lynn, I found out that you were the champion scooter across the basement in high school when you were listening to the high school movies. She says, yeah, I was faster. She was, because when she grew up, she didn't crawl. She scooted on her butt. So when they were racing across the floor with about 12 girls, who were juniors and seniors in high school, and we got this picture, and she laughed and laughed about that.
So this sharing is actually the second pillar. Sharing is the second pillar. First you care, and sharing is absolutely important for all the reasons that the stories we've been telling about the value of the sharing. So, for example, in your case, I don't know where you are at in terms of your relationship with your mother, but are you aware of her friends? Can you start mining their memories to share back with your mother? Or
They're all
her
deceased.
that,
Literally.
that's the problem with an older dementia, right?
Yes.
Yes, or church members or club members, or start mining those stories. Are you aware of anybody that used to know her?
Yeah. No, honestly, if we're talking specifically on my end, no, they are all deceased, really. But I do want to say something, because like you said, part of the pillars is, care and share. But you almost brought me, you brought me to tears, Lee, inside, Carol, when you said the story about the couple that came into the museum to make new memories. And I think that is important as well. Very important. At least for me, it's high on that list. Is making those new memories now. Whether it doesn't matter if she forgets them tomorrow or doesn't remember them, I have them, and it helps me, and it stabilizes me and gives me strength to be able to carry on and help. So hopefully people who are listening to that story that you gave and to us right now is make those new memories. I hope it was okay for me to say that.
Absolutely. And take pictures, because that could trigger her memory later when you're talking.
Well, and I can tell you, we saw amazing transformations from Lynn when her friends would pick her up and take her out for something. They got to the point where they buddied up. There were two of them would come. It would be easier to help. She was healthy. She walked 24,000 feet and 20 steps in 24 hours. She was a walker. So she walked and walked and walked. And we got lots of stories about that. But two people could help her because she was still pretty strong. So two people took her out to just go out to an event where they had a farmer's market with a band on the street. And so that would be fun for her to do. So they got her out and tried to put her in the car. She was a good size, tall, about 5'10", and they couldn't get her in the car. She had her head back. She was stiff. She was really, really, and they were saying, Lynn, you got to help us. And she said, I'm trying. And they were laughing, and they finally squeezed her into the front seat of the car. And then they went out to the park next to where the parade was, and they got her out of that. And then she kind of walked around outside. Oh, that airplane is so loud. And her friends looked up, and there was an airplane. It was something they didn't even hear. So her senses were totally blind to what was happening. And all of a sudden she could hear the birds and things like that. So those things happened. Then they walked towards where the market was. And there was a group of guys that were playing in a band. And they were starting to go. And she was starting to move with the music. So all the senses were now getting active. And pretty soon her girlfriend said, Lynn, I think you're getting hot about those guys that are playing the band. She says, I'm Rui. She started. So then they walked some more, and she heard the kids were swinging in swings. Let's swing. She got in the swings and swing. Swing. Anyway, so then it was time to go back. Finally, after about 2 or 3 hours, and they walked back towards the car, and somebody was getting something, so they had to hurry back. Lynn walked up to the car, opened the car door, slipped in, slept right in as normal.
Because her body was so activated.
She had all of the 5 senses just had completely turned her whole body presence around. How long was that going to last? Not long. She'd get tired. The point is they put that belt buckle on. So absolutely, if you can't do it by yourself, bring other people to help with that and give her a real overwhelming of different senses of what's happening to her.
One day when we visited, we were out in the terrace outside, and there was a rosemary plant there. And so I picked some rosemary and sniffed it myself and held it to her to sniff. And her eyes got wide open, and she just was really excited in the moment. So part of the thing that people can do when they visit is to rely on touching those other senses, massaging, lotion and so forth, music, have those other senses engaged.
Another thing that people don't realize, go ahead. Go.
No, go ahead with yours. Mine I can remember here, so I hope I can remember.
We found out that you can read aloud to somebody. All right. People will go in and sit next to the loved one and read a book because they're there to care for her.
Mm-hmm.
If she can listen, she can hear, she can read aloud to them in a way that if it's a book or something that she likes, maybe there's something she knows. Carol and I, when we were talking about her learning and teaching me how to give her or give a patient instruction in a faith exercise, you can talk
that
about
story. Oh,
yeah.
This was relatively new in my understanding of Lynn, but we were visiting her, and suddenly we realized that she was having a hallucination, not uncommon, and she was saying, Satan, Satan, hell, get out of here. I entered her reality.
I was frozen. I didn't know what I was going to do.
I entered her reality, and I said, you tell him, Lynn, get thee behind me, Satan. And she said, get thee behind me, Satan. And then, and she was quite anxious. And I said, but Lynn, you're with us here. You're safe here. Satan isn't actually here with us. We're actually here with you, and we love you, and your boys love you. It'll be okay. And it calmed her down. But if I had said, oh, there's no such thing as Satan, it wouldn't have helped at all. So I entered her reality.
Well, and the
Right.
other thing that we found in some of the stuff we did, and then the other thing that pastors have done, is used all the five senses to give a service to a religious person.
What do
Uh,
you mean?
They would first of all, if they've been in a churchgoer, they
Mhm.
probably know many hymns, and they could
Okay.
start
Yes.
singing them. All right. So if they've been a religious person that way, they would know the music if they heard it, and they may be able to sing along with it. So they would know the tune. So that senses of hearing is there. The words come back. So they're there. And then priests that have been in and done that kind of thing put a candle up so that there's the scent of, a worship service with a candle where you go up and get, and there's crackers and you could give something to eat, something to nibble on, and then touch with water.
Mm-hmm. And especially if a person has relied on something like church ritual, that is so deeply embedded. Many, many times in my experience, you start leading the Lord's Prayer, and they may not even be verbal anymore, and suddenly they're saying the Lord's Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So things that are that deeply embedded, like hymns, to recall those is also really helpful.
Lynn's good friend and neighbor came in to see her and brought flowers, peonies. You can't bring flowers in and leave them with the people with Alzheimer's because they will try to eat them or turn them on, and then they'll definitely die anyway. Staff doesn't want them around to bother them. So there's an issue there, but she just brought in peonies for her. And she said, Lynn, look what I have. Peonies, remember? Remember all the trouble you had trying to get your peonies around the house? And so then they started talking about the peonies that she loved to care for about 5 or 6 years. And just all of a sudden, she had peonies in front of her. She could recognize those. She could recall those memories. She could know the smell, etc. So those were 3 senses that came out. So it's knowing her and knowing her well enough that they could help. So people who have stories that are not around can give those things to help. And anything you can find in yearbooks or whatever. I picked up my mother, brought her to us. Then we discovered she had Alzheimer's 3 years later. I didn't have her yearbook. I didn't have her name and address. I didn't have her friends' names. I didn't have a thing. And I lost it because I didn't have any way to draw it out of her or know it, or they didn't give it to me. If I had it to do again and I was going to move my mother so I could care for her, I would get all of her friends and her annual books and her name and addresses, and I'd say, give me everything you can about my mother, and you stay in touch with me, and I will stay in touch with you with media presence.
Bringing them into the team.
Bringing them into the team. Because when we took the services after she had died, they said to us, oh, thank you. You sent us a photograph. We were so worried about her. I could have been communicating with her, bringing memories up to me that I could have shared with my mom. And I'd learned more about my mom. And people can feel like they're contributing.
I kind of want to go back into the team, and as you said, it's for both the caregiver and for the loved one, the person who's going through it. Um, it's how do I present this? Because we talked about how does one ask, and I think it came out that typically you don't necessarily have to ask. As an example, if my neighbor, and if I know that husband or wife is going through it, I shouldn't have to wait for them to ask me for any kind of help. I should be neighborly, and it's not, you don't have to, but it's a good thing and a good place to show that you care. Is it okay what I'm asking you, is it okay for me to go knock on somebody's door that's your neighbor and say hi and say, I was just wondering, how things are going. Do you need for me to come over sometime and just sit and chat with you, or to sit and chat with, whoever, husband or wife, whoever's going through that? Is that appropriate to do if you feel comfortable?
I would think so. Of course, it will vary from person to person, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you'll get rejected. Maybe that caregiver will not yet be ready to be vulnerable in their need.
Okay.
So you might get
Okay.
rejected, but then you just remind them, I could do this. And don't ask them, what could I do? Give them some ideas about what you could do. So it's not all on them, So you say, like I could read her a book, or I could bring my phone and play music on Spotify or whatever for her time era. Um, Make suggestions of what you could do, which would you, you'd be much more likely to get a yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
see,
that's a
that's
that's good. That's a good way of doing that. Like you said, if somebody was to ask me, or say, "What do you want me to do for you?" Nothing. I've got it. Nothing. Hey, I'm running to the store. I gotta pick up some soda. Do you want me to grab you soda or bread? That would be easier for me
Excellent.
to say. You know what? Yeah, can you pick up a loaf of bread for me? Here's my
that's
five
really
dollars.
that's really right on, Chuck. And the other thing to do is, if you do find that you need to ask, it's really important to make a very definitive question that would be a simple task. I knew a man who was trying to get somebody to care for his wife, and he couldn't get anybody to come stay. Well, when you're saying ask somebody to stay for 2 hours, um, and you ask somebody that's never had it, she could fall apart. She could soil herself. She could, they're afraid to sit and wait
Mm,
while you shop. I'm going to be shopping. As you said, can I shop something for you? Or if you need to ask somebody for something, it's really good to do it on a very specific single point. For next week, I have an appointment for an hour with my doctor. Could you just watch her for an hour? And it's not asking for any care in him, but make it real specific, make it real limited, and ask if there's a way to help. So it's careful in terms of doing that. But for example, I don't know what I'm going to do for her. Well, reading aloud to her is good. She loves a certain kind of music. She likes orchestral music. I could bring my phone over and play some orchestral music for her when she's there. If she's sleeping, that's okay. Um, and you could bring her a treat, but you have to remember that at some points in time, the person with Alzheimer's can't have a treat because they're not able to swallow. They don't know, they've lost those functions. So it's imagining what that is, and so it's sharing. Here's a story I remember about her, and I just wanted to tell you. I'd love to tell it to her if I can, but I wanted you to know about it, and they can tell that story. And so
um, Jim and Carol, because this is so important, is there a website, books, anything like that that people can actually have access to right now to get more information about, about you, about the story, and about what we're talking about?
Yes, the name of Jim's book is, and we haven't even highlighted the other two pillars. The name of Jim's book is Best Dad in the Galaxy. She Said It. Make sure to include She Said It, because that's what Lynn named him. Webpage, bestdadinthegalaxy.com. We encourage people always to check in with the Alzheimer's Association. If you give me a minute, I'll get that number for you. Keep talking and I'll look it up.
okay, you're going to look it up.
Yeah, I'll look.
There is a number. It's a 24-hour number offered by Alzheimer's that you can call at any time and get information. And all that they're doing is referring you to someplace.
Okay.
And so they will say, okay, there's an Alzheimer's Association in Seattle. It's been very helpful. And here's the number on that one. Here's the number. Check, make sure that you can put this on your screen or something, but the number is 800-272-3900. That number is always somebody there on a national level. And if it helps you, for example, we're going to have to move her into a home. Where do you live? I live in Seattle. Well, what part of Seattle? Well, in Issaquah. Are there homes there? Here's how you can get information about where those homes are.
Yeah.
So you can even get to the point and say, I've been on the line, I've called several times, but I need to have a specific help. I need a daycare center for me in the Des Moines, Washington area. They will give you a number to call to get that information. So it's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Thank
They
you for
have
the
a
number.
program. Yeah. They have a program also called Alzheimer's Connect. And
Okay.
that is, are you familiar with that one? It's
No, I am not.
It's Alzheimer's Connect.com. And that is a list of all sorts of people who have or care for people with Alzheimer's. And they are allowed to share with each other what they are doing, but they can never be marketed to. They can never be publicized. What they're doing is they're been certified and their communications are certified and controlled so that Lynn wanted a cat and I didn't want to give her a cat. So then I wanted to talk to some people who had Alzheimer's and whether or not they thought it would be good for me to give it to her. I went on to Alzheimer's Connect and I found a group of people who had Alzheimer's and were willing to consult and help anyone. So I asked them, should I have a cat for Lynn, and told her the circumstances. 14 of them came back and said, don't do it. See if you can get another one. Try a mechanical cat. See if she brings it up again. And in the book, it explains, I ran into all sorts of trouble with that because she really wanted a cat. But it turns out that their advice was right, even though I was so desperate I didn't follow it at one point. But the point was, there it was. I could ask those people in complete confidence, and they were absolutely willing to trust me with their opinions on that. And you can get people who, nobody was my age caring for their daughter. Nobody. But there were other people caring for their mother, caring for their brother. Your situation with your family, you could find a lot of people who were going through exactly what you're going through. And you could be communication with them.
I'm glad you're saying that because there are stages, and one person might be in the stage. I think I've heard there's like 7 stages, but I'll just say 7. And if somebody knows for sure, please comment and correct that. But if you're in stage 1, it's going to be different behavior and different ways of working with people on a different stage. So that's great that there are groups, and like I said, somebody in there is going to be in that same. It has experienced what you're experiencing now, or are experiencing what you're experiencing now at the same time. So regardless of what position, they can help, and you can help them as well.
That's why Carol and I talk about prepare. So the first time you're going in or not visiting or just sending stuff, whatever, prepare for what you're going to do. We're going to prepare for everything that we do. And the third thing is share what happened. And it could be all wrong. We had problems like that. I mean, I had a friend came in, gave her some stuff, had a great visit, and then wrote me an email and said it didn't work. Lynn was so unhappy. I was right. I don't know that I can come back. I don't think she wants me there. It didn't have a good visit. I put that on the post, and I went back to Lynn and I said, I understand. So and so, oh yeah, she was there. I said it wasn't a really good visit, as I understand. Oh no, Dad, it was a great visit. She brought her dog. What? Yeah, see? And because she left a picture, she pointed to the dog in the picture. I didn't see the picture. She didn't remember that she got the dog. It was a great visit. So we went back and posted that. So that's the whole thing in terms of sharing.
Yeah.
But then what happens is what you've just mentioned. What stage is she in? Every stage changes. And that's why we call it repair. We got to start over. We had a problem with her condition. She was in a room. She was on the floor. It was too noisy. The residents had changed. The staff had changed. And we just said to the Aegis company, so we don't think she can stay in because it's bothering her in her kind of dissonance with the environment right now. So we're going to look for another place to go. So we told the marketing people at the organization that we were going to do that. And I said, come along with us. So we went to a different place to look. She came along. That wasn't going to work for Lynn, but she came back to the organization and said, we need to change our practices. So then they put all sorts of changes and things. They made major changes to the administration of the facility because we were open and sharing of what we're and needing repair. They made the repairs. Bang, we were at a new level.
Very important to be an advocate and to be on top of all that.
Right.
So we have our 4 pillars. We have we haven't hit number 4 yet, right? We've got our care.
Number 4 is repair.
And
Four
number
is
4 is repair. So we have
care, prepare, share, repair.
See, the brain's not working. Repair.
Are you working?
Prepare.
No. We know how to do this with somebody whose memory is faulty.
In my ears, I'm going, care, repair. Oh, it sounds the same. Must be the same. No.
They cared, they prepared, they shared, and they repaired. Yeah. And that's a cycle. So it's an ever-building cycle of love. The people in the administration loved it. They loved what the care was. They loved Lynn because she was their daughter or their son, because she had so many different people coming in. As I said, Lynn, Jim, she needs new shoes. Jim, she needs a haircut. Things I missed and the staff missed. So the friends would come in and they say, well, she's not like that. So they changed their medications. So it was a really close relationship with all of the staff that was also involved with that.
So the love team relieved some of the burden from the staff.
The more staff, the more friends that they had, the better it is for the staff. Because for one thing, they take Lynn out of the facility for 2 hours, or they're with her for an hour and a half and visiting with her. And they see things that they miss. There's 4 people on the staff and they've got 20 people on the floor. Guess what? They don't really know what's going on with all of them. They're caring and they want to know, but they want to know right away. So they help. So that's the cycle.
So this topic is, again, so important, but there's so much that could be said about it and talk about it because we're all individuals and we may handle and deal with things in a different way. But, I want to ask you something that might be a little bit different before we close out. And that is, we've been saying about what should we do? What should we do? What should we not do? What is it that
things to not do? Don't expect her to be what she was yesterday. Don't expect her to be what she was, 10 minutes ago. We'd just sit down and watch her and she's reaching forward something. She had hallucinations. She was running in that time. She come in and she said, I don't want to talk to you, Dad. No. There were times when she just didn't want to see me, push me out. It was the Z's. Interesting. One time I was explaining to her, Lynn, you can't figure this. She said, I can't figure this out. And this. And I said, well, hon, it's because you have Alzheimer's. So it's normal that you're going to have a little trouble with it. She said, oh, well, maybe that's it. But there will be times that are in between that, and that's what you're going for. And it's always the disease and not her and not things. I mean, her boys gave her a birthday party 2 months before she died. Birthday 12/12, died on January 19th, actually just a little over a month. And we posted that birthday party. She had she was smiling. She was with the boys. She was having so much fun. And then we posted that on Facebook, and about 15 or 20, 25 people wrote their name as a comment, liked it. And that's all it was. But they put the name on the comment. So I took all those names and I put them on a list. Am I going too slow? And I put them on a list and I read them to her. I said, Lynn, do you know how many people love you? And she didn't say anything. And so I read the names slowly. And then she listened to every single one of them. So I posted that. Well, the next thing I knew, I had 40. So I went back and I wrote her 47. We got up to 103. And she listened to every single one of those words just 3 weeks before she died. So she's got capability in there. And she turned around one time. Can I tell this joke?
Well, he asked us a question I think we should get back to.
Oh, we
His
should.
question was what not to do.
Oh,
So I wanted to say what not to do.
I got a great story, though.
What not to do. Never try to talk them into being rational. It's not going to be rational. Forget rational. Don't argue with them. As we said earlier, enter their space.
Talk slowly.
Talk slowly.
Don't expect them to know who you are. She didn't know who Carol was, but she reached out for her and hugged her. Sometimes she started to call her mom, and then she would stop. And all I knew was Lynn loved me, and I didn't care whether she knew my name. I don't care. She loved me.
And
She showed.
And don't be discouraged by the visits that feel like you failed. I said to Jim one day, he was really down as we were leaving one day, and he said, just as well not have come, you know. And
You're not supposed to admit that.
And it popped into my head, however that happens, to say the only failed visit is the one you didn't make.
Mm-hmm. I want to add along with that and what you were saying too, Jim, about disease. It's not him, her, or you. It's the disease. So, and like you said, use that word discouragement, Carol. Don't be discouraged. Don't be mad at yourself. Don't be mad at them. It's the disease.
And don't underestimate what they understand.
Mm-hmm.
I was with her 3 weeks before she died. She was on the floor. She had to learn to fall carefully because she walked a lot. She pushed herself back up. And I got to her one time when she was in her room by herself, beginning to get back up. And I said, do you want me to help you up? She said, yeah. So I helped her up. And as I helped her up, I passed gas. And I said, whoops, I should have left that at the apartment. And she said, Dad, 3 weeks before she died. So it's slow, but she's processing, she's thinking. And she solved her way to get up.
And every situation is different. Give yourself a lot of space. Give yourself a lot of forgiveness. Don't be too hard on yourself.
I would suggest also don't go alone all the time. Mm-hmm. Go with somebody. But don't talk to the person you're with. One of you will be talking to Lynn the person, the loved one, at all times. So she's always the focus. And then it's your turn to focus. But don't start talking to each other. Lynn would get upset with that.
Because she'd be left out.
She'd be left out.
Yeah.
She would understand what we were saying.
Don't be reading your social media on the phone because you're bored. Focus on her. Even if it's in silence, focus on him.
Yeah.
Once again, can you remind the audience where they could go to read more and get more information?
Well, the Alzheimer's phone number is Alzheimer's Association. And that phone number again is, we're going to give
on your website?
Jen, his website, bestdadinthegalaxy.com.
She said it.
Not the website.
Oh, the website. That's right.
That's the book.
But the book, Best Dad in the Galaxy. Great stories in the book. You can find out how many times we fail. It's Best Dad in the Galaxy. She said it because she did say it.
Available on Amazon and other such places.
In all sorts of places. At your bookstore.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say this has been really good. Really good. And I'm sure this is going to help many people out there. So thank you
say you're really good
for
too.
me And thank you for, I'm going to speak for everybody that's in the audience that's going through this. We're saying thank you to the two of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.